My friends and I, we've had them 3 straight years to win the Super Bowl. First year, we don't. I'm over them. I'm over it. Bobby Trosset joining the show. He hosts RavensVault, so he's going to give us a little more level-headed thought process on this. Okay, Bobby, were you just as mad as I was yesterday?
Well, look, I know you're on another level right now, you and all of Baltimore, because you got actual ties. You got to remember my geography. I wind up in Baltimore solely based on the career that I was chasing at the time. And so I don't have that true ingrained fandom that you and others do, but I can empathize with you because I've covered this team for what you've just discussed throughout this, what's become an epidemic, really. And that is this unwillingness to consistently close out games. So I empathize with you. I'm having a hard time fully putting myself in your shoes. So let's talk about it.
Okay, so then from your rational perspective, I put this on John Harbaugh. When I just keep showing this graphic. When this continues to happen, at some point, the common denominator is John Harbaugh. How much of this, in your mind, is John Harbaugh?
Yeah, I mean, as the second longest tenured head coach, right? At some point, you got to point the finger to the guy that's the ultimate CEO whose watch all this has transpired under, and it goes back for years. And now each time you can go with, okay, it was an abandoning of the run, if you will, in the AFC Championship game. It was a ball security issues in the first half of the divisional round game last year in Buffalo, and this year it's your future Hall of Famer. I should say this year, meaning just last night in this specific, what have you done for me lately game. It's Derrick Henry en route to a signature performance where he's breaking Jim Brown previous records that have stood for years and going for potential 2 bills on the ground and stiff arming Cole Bishop and everything that was just one of the vintage Derrick Henry performances. And then he coughs up the football. And sure, it was a great play made by Buffalo, but you're thinking to yourself, like, this is not how we had it scripted, right, in Baltimore. So at some point here in what is year 8 for Lamar, and how many years of coming up short it's been without one of the greatest in this generation, if not the greatest, in terms of pure talent and prolific nature with which he plays this game. At some point, if you're Steve Bisciotti, I would think that clock is going to start to tick in your mind, knowing that you can't let this guy play for another team. I mean, come on, he is Baltimore.
And you can't ruin Lamar Jackson's prime either.
You can't ruin his prime. He's not even 30 yet. The guy has over 70% of the games in which he starts, he wins. Obviously, the resume and the full body of work speaks for itself. He was able to outlive and overcome the Greg Roman era. Todd Monken is unlocked. And it's all due respect to Greg. They had a historic 2019.
To your point about that era or those eras, the same thing happened. So now I can't even put the blame on Todd Monken. I can't put the blame on Lamar Jackson. It's no longer just an offensive coordinator problem. The one common denominator is John Harbaugh. And I know the chat's already going to get bored. So I want to just mention let's talk about the future. So now the Ravens move on to Cleveland, which is still actually a revenge game because of what happened last year where the Ravens couldn't close out a game again, where they lost to the Cleveland Browns when I was in Manhattan, Kansas with Kelly, watching at a bar, about to throw my barbecue at the projection screen because I couldn't believe what I was watching. The Ravens are 13-point favorites. I think it was 11.5 last night when I checked. So they're pretty heavy favorites at home against Cleveland in the opener. They should destroy them. It's Joe Flacco back at the bank as well. Bobby, how concerned should we be going forward knowing that it's after the Browns, Chiefs, Lions?
Yeah, I think you and I are both old enough to remember that they were staring 0-2 in the face, and they lost this exact game in this exact home opener a year ago to a Raiders team that was not even on the same playing field in terms of talent. So look, anything goes. Obviously, I'm going to be predicting a Ravens win. I think they're going to handle business. But at the same time, this is a Cleveland team that might be 0-1. Could have very well easily been 1-0. Did we watch what happened yesterday? I mean, Joe Flacco got absolutely no favors whatsoever from his pass catchers. 2 of those deflections end up in interceptions. His kicker, and not only misses an extra point, but a field goal as well. I mean, that could have easily swung in Cleveland's direction. And yeah, to your point, I mean, Jameis Winston under center a year ago for the Browns, and Kyle Hamilton misses a pick that he'd probably reel in 99 times out of 100. Weird shit happens in the AFC North. And will I be surprised if this time next week they're staring at 0-2? Yeah, I'd probably be surprised, but certainly not out of the question, because the bottom line is, Ariel, I mean, honestly, this is a team that you have a hard time trusting at this point. And I don't think there's anything hyperbolic about them. I still see them ripping off double-digit wins pretty handily once they catch their groove this year. I still see this defense coming around and having a couple double-digit sack getters when it's all said and done. I still see them, winning this division and earning a playoff spot and winning, a game or two and having a chance when January comes around. And this could very well be, you hate to be a prisoner in a moment, right? We may have just watched a preview of the AFC Championship game. It's probably not going to be happening in Baltimore, by the way. We know how much this is, the implications that went into.
Doesn't matter. They lost that one too.
Yeah, right. So
it doesn't matter. They still find a way to forget that they run the football when they're the number one rushing offense in football, and at home decide to lose to the Chiefs, which we get the Chiefs and the Lions. And I think all things are resolved if the Ravens take both those games.
Sure. I mean, look, it's a team that it's first place schedule. We know what's upcoming for them. It's been a first place schedule the last couple of years. I think they'll be the first team in AFC North history, if they win the division, to rip it off and win it 3 straight seasons. So again, I'm trying not to be a prisoner of the moment, because this is a Buffalo team that obviously had a lot to play for. They had as many emotions as the Ravens did going back to their place last night. Remember, it was the last first time, if you will, at Highmark Stadium before their new stadium is opened up and whatnot. And what I think, as much as curious to hear your thought on this, because you do have that diehard fandom. Last year it was easy to sort of label some of their losses, maybe the majority of their losses, as self-inflicted wounds, where you could say, yeah, that the team that looks back at them when they look in the mirror is what's in their way. To me, I just can't get behind that last night. As fluky as it was at times for the Bills, don't get me wrong. There were a couple fluky plays, right? Malachi Starks drops the would-be pick. Cheeto does the same. You had the tip drill ended up right in the breadbasket of Keon Coleman in the end zone. A couple flaky no calls, one on Bateman that I'm sure that the officials would want back. But that was utter domination by the Bills in the fourth quarter, to the point where there was just a non-existent pass rush. At times you saw, I saw almost like a lack of want. There was like a lack of conditioning, maybe week one legs from underneath these guys. But yeah, I have a hard time.
Where can the Ravens get better going forward?
Where can they get better moving forward? God, I mean, where do you start defensively?
Right. Well, that's what I keep hearing. Offensively, you saw what they're capable of, and it's scary if they don't stop doing it. The defense, I keep hearing from all of these analysts, former players on TV today, the defense has no identity, and they want Zachary Orr to create an identity for this defense.
I saw that as well. Yeah. Chris Carter being one of them who just straight up was like on Kay Adams' show, he's like, Harbaugh has been, non-existent on the sideline for 4 or 5 years. He goes out to say, now I'm not sure about that. 2023, they had so much, they had an identity so much that they'd done something that no defense had ever done before.
Yeah, Sean McDonald did a great job.
Yeah, leading in the trifecta of categories. Mike McDonald's defense, they finished the year.
Mike McDonald, sorry.
Yeah, they led in takeaways, points allowed, and sacks. And that was a pretty darn good identity-driven year. And then Mike obviously turns that into a head coaching job. To me, it's like, what happens pressure management-wise, preparation, strategizing-wise? What happens in these do-or-die moments? What happens internally? John Harbaugh said something earlier today at his Monday press conference that essentially suggested that they have to go in and be intentional and mindful of everything from how they respond with these double-digit leads to how they communicate internally, almost from a play calling staff-wide standpoint, when they're in the midst of trying to close out a game against a great like Josh Allen. I don't want to read into that too much, but shouldn't that communication have been figured out a couple months ago?
Yeah.
I know it's a new staff.
And last year, I would give them the benefit of the doubt with a new defensive coordinator. There were a bunch of new key contributors, first full year of Roquan. Like, there were a lot of new things last year. This year, outside of Malachi Starks, there's nothing really that new on the defense. And Zachary Orr has been there. So there is no excuse for not having some kind of 2-minute drill in place for your defense and knowing how to stop Josh Allen and be quick on your feet. But before I have to let you go in a second, Bobby, AFC North as a whole, after this weekend, how sold are you on a team outside of Baltimore?
Oh, I've been on record for all offseason long, and our audience hates this shit. So I'll say it again and hopefully not get killed by yours. Maybe yours are a little bit more.
They're not Raven homers. They
Yeah,
actually love when I'm miserable. So it's fine.
I was going to say, you got a diversified audience, I hope, in terms of fandom. But look, I just think that 40-plus-year-old Aaron Rodgers coming off really not a wasted 2 years, but one that a forgettable 2 years with the Jets, has absolutely nothing to lose. And to me, with the framework that is Pittsburgh, which is finally consistent and stable framework around him for the first time since he left Green Bay, with nothing to lose, with a stellar defense, some playmaking ability around him, not a ton of mobility, but can still sling it. I don't know. To me, that's scary. I think they're going to split the regular season series with the Ravens. I don't, if the Ravens match up with them again in the postseason, I'm obviously picking Baltimore after what we watched last year. I think it's an upgrade from Russell Wilson. I think it's an upgrade from the 6 weeks they got of Justin Fields. To me, Aaron has nothing left to prove externally, but it's almost like in his head, there's nothing to lose. And it's almost like, oh, wait a second. What does that mean for what could be coming for the Steelers? So I know the Ravens won't see them for a couple months, but if I'm looking at somebody in the division, I could still see an AFC North having a three-team postseason type contention posting over the next few months, but I'll go with Pittsburgh to be the biggest threat, if you will, to whatever the Ravens want to accomplish in the regular season.
Hey, we know that series always ends up really getting split one apiece because something fluky is going to happen, and the Ravens will probably shoot themselves in the foot in one of those games yet again. But for anybody that does want to get more on the Ravens, check out RavensVault with Bobby Trosset and Sarah Ellison. They're awesome. When does that air and where?
Yeah, thanks. YouTube space, audio only space, 12 noon Eastern every single day, lunch hour live streams, at least for the East Coast. And you can check out my work over on the Bobby Baltimore side of things across all platforms. Great to hear you. Great to hear from you. And I hope to do it again.